pretty nostalgic to be able to compete at the ranch where the CrossFit Games started.
So back in 2016, we had that spontaneous trip to the ranch, which I think we did like 3 events.
We did the deadlift ladder at the ranch. That would be pretty cool if we repeated that.
Had a little bit of an up and down on that particular day. I went out real hot on the trail run and didn't do as well as I would have liked, but hopefully learned my lesson and have gotten some good trail running exposure since then.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest reasons why I've always wanted to make the games is, like I said, I volunteered in 2015. I get to see them flip the pig, and in previous years they've done the events like Chaos, where the athletes had no idea what they were doing as they went through it, and the plow and the snail and just all these crazy like objects and events they get to do at the games that you could just never do inside your box.
Yeah, I mean, I was playing with Barbies when they were competing at the ranch, so couldn't tell you much about it.
It's definitely pretty cool, but I mean, either way, I'm there to put in work, so I'm not thinking about it too terribly much, you know? So, but I definitely think since it's being there, we're gonna do some pretty cool events for sure.
I'd assume stage 2 will be different in some ways. You know, if we're going back to an in-person competition.
I think we're gonna see some pretty good CrossFit, and we're gonna have a few events like outside, like maybe some swimming, some running.
Yeah, I think it'll be special this year too, just because it's where CrossFit started, and it has announced that day 1 of what we are going to go through is similar to what they did in 2007. So I definitely think that's something special. I mean, the workout's going to be harder just because the sport has evolved, but that's where the roots are. And I mean, I feel like anytime you go back to somewhere where a sport started or just has all that history behind it is cool, and it'll just be an experience in itself, and I'm just going to soak up every second of it.
2020 has indeed brought the CrossFit Games back to its roots, but we're still in the present. We're still in an era dominated by Matt Frazier and Tia-Clair Toomey, and they have so far set the pace at the 2020 Reebok CrossFit Games. We're back here at CrossFit Brethren in Morgan Hill, where the athletes are heading right now here to Morgan Hill. This is the Rogue Iron Game desk. I'm Sam Farber alongside Annie Sakamoto and Pat Sherwood, socially distanced and being very safe, of course, here in the era of COVID-19 as well. But most importantly for CrossFit fans, this era of Frazier and Toomey continuing. Guys, your thoughts through 2 events?
I mean, already we've got some stories playing out exactly as we thought. Tia and Matt are just so incredible. Even amongst the top 5, they appear to be only competing with themselves. And then on the other side, the young blood from Medeiros to Haley Adams. There's some exciting new faces in CrossFit, and we're just getting started.
Well, and it's really interesting to watch just 5 in the field this year. So literally when you look left and right, you know exactly where you are within the pack. There's only 1 heat. So it's interesting to see, you know, these athletes don't have to think about heats that went in front of them, heats that went behind them. It is literally the 4 people right alongside them that they're playing against.
And that dynamic has really played out so far. It seems like the 8 non-reigning champions are kind of playing against the event, and the 2 champions are playing against the field. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. First, from event number 1, taking us all the way back to the origins of the CrossFit Games, the 2007 reload. It was Matt Frazier, the 4-time defending champ, who last year was challenged, got his closest call against Noah Olson. They were 1-2 off of the rower, but as they got into things, Matt Frazier did what Matt Frazier does. Jeffrey Adler, Justin Medeiros, also out there working hard, obviously, as well as Samuel Quant. Medeiros actually was able to move into second place around round 3 of the muscle-ups and shoulder to overheads, and actually got pretty comfortable in that second position. But Matt Frazier the entire time had things measured. There was that failed rep at the end of his final set, and that's something that, of course, we can all overanalyze now for quite some time. He does get the 100 points for finishing first, but we can all dive really deep into this. Say, is this the first sign of weakness for a declining champion? Or maybe is this the equivalent in CrossFit of LeBron James having a breakaway dunk up by 10 with 8 seconds left and throwing it off the backboard? Let's let Matt Frazier give you his thoughts.
Part of it was I knew
I'm sure it was I just relaxed a little bit because I knew even if I missed this, you know, I still have time to shake it out, pick it up, do another rep. But yeah, I mean, it's a heavy weight, and 5 sets of 7, it adds up. So yeah, you know, the last set going in, it's like, you know, I feel like I should break this up and do it in 2 sets. But it's the last set. There's no one really around me. Might as well give it a whack, see what happens. So, yeah, just got a little out of line, dropped it, took a second, picked it up, finished it.
So that about settles it. The over-analysis maybe can end. Matt Fraser is human. Yes, this is hard for everyone, but he really had things measured out there. So setting him aside for the moment, he's in first place. He gets the 100 points. Justin Medeiros, though, very impressive. The only rookie left across the men's and women's field, and he comes out with a second-place finish.
I absolutely loved Justin Medeiros on event number 1. You know, this is a young kid that I think has some podium potential, but you never know, right? You get gym numbers, then you see what happens on the competition floor, but he stayed with the champ and pushed the pace, and I really like on event number 1 how he competed. He was pushing himself to darn near his limit, but he never looked frantic. He never looked out of control, and for a rookie, paced just about perfectly as far as I can tell. And if you're only 8 seconds away from Matt Fraser on an event, well played.
On the other side of that was Noah Olson, and I think Noah did not play his game. He kind of, we talked about this earlier, coming out on that row, you really you could win, you could lose this event on the row, but definitely not win it. Noah coming off the row first kind of had me worried. Again, it was only a few seconds ahead of some of the other athletes, but it could have been easily 15 seconds too fast for Noah. And that proved to be the case because he fell far behind Matt and the rest of the pack by about the 4th round there and barely closed out that event. It makes me a little nervous for Noah. I think that he is somebody that really feeds off of the crowd being at these events, and he doesn't have the crowd cheering him on. And so I'm curious to see if he can adjust to the new environment and play his game for him.
Noah definitely has a little bit of work cut out for him. I did not expect him to be so far behind so early. No need to make it so dramatic. I don't know if it was improper pacing or nerves. I mean, coming away from last year with a silver medal around your neck, you know, no matter how much mental training and discipline you have, you're still human. You have to feel that pressure. So what Noah needs to do right now is realize, even though you're in a deficit, there's a lot of events left, some of which we don't know. Anything can happen. Stay in the fight and just run your race.
True, but with the condensed field, it really takes away some of that margin of error. If you think about it, if he's just going one-on-one with Matt Fraser here, he has to beat him 4 times just to make up for that one event. So it is a pretty big hole he has dug for himself. If you're looking at the gold for the silver, obviously there's a little bit more room for him to improve and make up that ground as we move forward. And let's move right into event 2. It was the corn sack sprint. Very simple description, but not an easy event at all. And this is one where Matt Fraser really used a lot of strategy. You see him on this flat part, kind of measuring the field, getting his pace. He didn't move into first place, actually, until about a third of the way up the bulk of that hill, really racing the other athletes while the other athletes maybe were more or less racing against the terrain there. Matt Fraser with back-to-back first-place finishes. Obviously, that's a huge start for him to put up 200 points through 2 events. Second place going to Samuel Quat. He has 2 top 3 finishes in the first 2 events, and he's the only person to have that level of consistency. And with that, he is rewarded with second place overall. 3:07 his time, and maybe significant in terms of a podium finish later, but Jeffrey Adler able to just sneak ahead of the rookie Justin Medeiros at the very end there and take 4th place. Maybe not a huge difference, but it will help with his points come the end of the day. Adler is still in 5th place right now, or a tie for 4th with 70 with Noah Olson, but he does cut in a little bit to that gap between him and the podium. But up top, the leaderboard, as we've become accustomed to seeing the last 5 years. Matthew Frazier, guys, what do you think of the back-to-back event wins, number 20 and 21 of Matt Frazier's career?
It could be sometimes my job as an analyst to create some drama, and we're going to have a heck of a race. I'm sorry. I don't think that's what's going to happen this year. I think you just need to settle in and watch what is a monstrous human being actually capable of. How many points can Matt Frazier actually rack up? And just watch this guy make some history.
Well, and I love what he said earlier, which is that he actually enjoys not having the crowd or the music because he loves hearing his own breathing. And I think that's something that a lot of us can't relate to, right? When you hear how hard you're breathing, it freaks you out. What does it do for Matt? It fires him up. It lets him know exactly where he is within his own capacity and where he needs to be. And that, to me, is a sign of a true champion.
Oh, we're sane human beings. That's why we can't relate to that.
Yeah, and I remember, talking to him before he made the move to Tennessee. He just basically lived in the basement talking to his parents. He just goes down there and he works out. He's kind of made for the times that we live in now to just operate this way. And maybe the subtle distraction of thousands of fans makes him even better having those things taken away. What else stands out for you guys through 2 events here?
Well, for me, it would be Samuel Quant, and I would be remiss not to finally talk about Samuel Quant. He has so far, again, it's just 2 events, been super consistent, and that is exactly what you need to be when the point spread is the way it is in this competition. He goes 3rd place on event 1. He's only 21 seconds behind Matt Frazier, and on event 2, the corn sack sprint, he hangs with Matt Frazier for the first part, and then slowly moves himself into 2nd, but is able to hold squarely onto that 2nd place position. A 3rd and a 2nd after 2 events will put him in 2nd place with a good point spread against some of the other competitors. And again, the name of the game right now is consistency if you're not Matt Frazier.
And then you've got Mr. Medeiros. Dang it, you weren't supposed to do that on the corn sack sprint. It's so fantastic on event number 1, but then he is a rookie, an incredibly talented rookie, but a rookie nonetheless. But he looked like a cool, calm, collected veteran during event number 1. Like I said, paced perfectly, and if on anything on the competition floor, you're the next competitor behind Matt Frazier, you have my undivided attention, especially in a mixed modality multi-round workout involving gymnastics and a monostructural piece and a heavy barbell. Showed that he was a well-rounded, capable athlete. But then on the hill sprint, such a rookie mistake at the very end. He had 4th place, closed up, and at the last second, he just took his foot off the gas. Adler, bam, right by him, and that's a 20-point spread in difference. And so those little rookie mistakes, sometimes you have to learn through experience. So he's in the deep end of the pool right now.
For the moment, he is still in a podium position, but as you mentioned, he gave up 20 points of cushion there between himself and his next closest competitor. So we'll see what kind of factor that is. Overall, though, Matt Frazier right where we are accustomed to seeing him atop the leaderboard, 2 for 2. 200 points and career event wins 20 and 21. On to the women. They also have their dominant performer of this era, and really in most people's estimations at this point of all time, in Tia-Clair Toomey. And she did what we're accustomed to seeing her doing as well in her first 2 events here at the 2020 Reebok CrossFit Games. Also another storyline here, we will have an American finish on the podium for the first time since 2014. Will be Kari Pierce, will be Brooke Wells, Katrin Davidsdottir, a champion from 15 and 16, trying to work her way back. Haley Adams, how quickly can her ascent continue? And everyone is chasing Tia-Clair Toomey, the 3-time reigning champion. And once again, she was really competing against the field, not necessarily against the workout. We saw her measuring the competition almost before starting some of her sets, both on the muscle ups as well as on the barbell. She really coasted this one. Did have a slight hiccup at the end, very much the same as Matt Frazier, leaving one last rep left to do. But at the end of the day, she really was not challenged here. Comes away with 100 points. Haley Adams, there were some questions on how she would do with the heavier barbell. Didn't seem to be much of a deal for her. She ends up in 2nd place. But Tia-Clair Toomey atop the leaderboard. Katrin Davidsdottir did have a little bit of a sneak in there at the end to finish ahead of Brooke Wells, who really struggled on those last couple reps in that last set. But Tia-Clair Toomey, right where she left off, and where Matt Frazier last year saw the gap between himself and Noah Olsen for first and second really close. Tia-Clair Toomey has been expanding her lead over the last couple years. As we see through one event, guys, it seems like she's doing that again.
Tia-Clair Toomey is just, again, I'm sorry, I said this earlier in the show, but in a league of her own. She's so good, so capable across anything that you throw at her that it seems like she must be near the pinnacle of human performance. But every year, she actually gets not just a little bit better, but significantly better. And now, all year long, she's been training with another multi-year champion, Matt Fraser, which is almost unfair. And thus far, what we've seen is every time that Fraser walks off the field, he talks to his training partner, Tia, and gives her just a couple little jewels, a couple little tidbits that give her yet another advantage moving forward. And we're just seeing that play out.
So we know that she's still at the top of her game. What else did we learn through one event?
Well, for me, like I said earlier today, my eyes were on Haley Adams. I wanted to see how she was going to handle this heavier barbell. She was the first athlete off the rower. What I liked, too, about Haley is that she went right from the rower directly to the pull-up bar. She didn't waste time chalking, but then really it was going to come down to how she moved that 145 overhead, and she did it quite well. I think we've talked about, Haley doesn't have that top-end strength, but what she does have is a great ability to move a higher percentage of heavyweight. And when you're looking at a competition that has 10 plus events, usually there's only going to be one that's going to test your absolute strength. The rest is going to be, again, more how you move a higher percentage of heavyweight. Haley Adams obviously has the capacity to do that and do that really well. She sat right behind Tia the entire event and proved to us that she really should be amongst these 5 women right now.
Event number 1, Haley was impressive from the get-go, but then Katrin Davidsdottir, on the other hand, gave us the whole range of emotions, from extreme disappointment for the overwhelming majority of the time. I was like, oh no, Katrin, you're falling into the trap that we see every year, which is you dig yourself a hole, then you have to spend the rest of the weekend coming out of it. I thought she was going to take dead last because Wells had the lead, and then Katrin showed why she's a 2-time champion. She never gives up. She is a ferocious competitor, and at the very end, she operated at the limits of her capacity, just got across the line in front of Brooke Wells. And that difference between taking 5th and taking a 4th, those points are going to be monstrous at the end of this competition. So well done to Katrin.
Yeah, most definitely. It's one less event, really, that you have to finish ahead of someone to make up the gap. So she is one step closer to returning to the podium. Event 2, the corn sack sprint, a 30-pound corn sack for the women. And when you look at Tia-Clair Toomey and how she approached this in comparison with her training partner, Matt Frazier, the first third of his race, it really was a race. He was measuring the competition, picking a spot to pull ahead. Not for Tia-Clair Toomey. She went right to the front, said, catch me if you can, and no one could really come close. She is able to pull away and take event 2. She goes 2 for 2, 200 points for her. That log jam there between those final couple of trees maybe prevented some more of the potential moves because it allowed Haley Adams, who dropped her bag, to pick it up without anyone having a lot of room to get past her. That might have been a factor for her keeping some of her points there compared to the rest of the field, but no one was going to catch Tia-Clair Toomey. There is certainly no logjam there at the top. 3:05 her time. Katrin Davidsdottir, a good comeback there to finish second. Haley Adams in third, and then Pierce and Wells rounding out the competition. The overall standings, impressive again. Tia-Clair Toomey going for her 4th consecutive win at the CrossFit Games. 200 points, a 70-point gap between herself and Haley Adams. Annie, Tia-Clair Toomey, just incredibly impressive as we've become accustomed to seeing.
Right, like Pat was saying earlier, when you look at these first two events and her ability to not just do well, but completely dominate the rest of the competition, shows exactly why this lady is in contention for her 4th straight title. On those bar muscle-ups, she was the only female who didn't rest at the top of that bar muscle-up. All the others would kind of pause at the top of the bar. She had a fair distance on the second competitor in the corn sack sprint. Again, she's not just winning, she's winning by huge margins above these other females who are incredibly fit in and of themselves, right? So like Pat said, she's setting herself apart from the pack and doing it in a very dominant fashion.
And also, I mean, event 1 and event 2 are two very different events from time domains to loadings, and we already have the champion once again showing doesn't matter what you throw at me, I've got this in the bag. So extremely impressive so far.
Sometimes we see across all sports the arc of the athlete. Are you ascending? Are you continuing to peak? Tia-Clair Toomey is continuing to push the bar to new heights. Incredibly impressive for her through 2 events. Annie, looking at some of the other competitors, what stands out to you here?
Well, for me, it's Brooke Wells. You know, she really actually stood out to me on stage 1 with her extremely consistent performance. She had no finishes outside of the top 10. She just looked so good coming into stage 2. And now to think that on the first 2 events today, she's finished 5th place out of 5 contenders doesn't sit well with me. On both events, she was doing okay. She was back of the pack, but not necessarily last. And she kind of had these failed reps or misses that ended up putting her in 5th place on both events. That puts her in a huge point deficit going into the next event. Now, luckily for her, the next event is the CrossFit Total. We know she lifts weight well, but she really needs to do extremely well on the next few events in order to make up the deficit.
I really enjoyed watching Haley Adams on this because this is one of those events where, yes, it helps to have strong hamstrings and a midline and cardiorespiratory endurance and all that, but you have to have some grit, determination, and fight once we're showing up, we're in person, and again, an amazing event number 1, taking 2nd right behind the champ. Fantastic. But what I really wanted to see was, once we finished event number 1 and we moved on to that corn sack sprint and just your sheer grit and will was tested, what was this 19-year-old going to show up with against these just veteran competitors? And she crushed it. I mean, up the hill, she started off a little bit slow, and I thought to myself, oh, here it is. I wonder if she's internally giving up a little bit. But that wasn't the case. She stayed in the fight. She wound up passing Brooke Wells about midway through, when it'd be really easy to hold back. And then even at the end, when she had a misstep and dropped the bag, she stayed in it mentally, picked it back up. Strong finish. So far, Haley Adams is doing great.
Doing great indeed. She's in 2nd. On the men's side, the rookie Justin Medeiros is in a podium position as well. But our reigning, defending champions, they are looking very strong so far. Matt Frazier, Tia-Clair Toomey, both your leaders. One special thing we have for you here at our Rogue Iron Games set throughout the weekend, some very, very special guests across the CrossFit community. And one woman who needs no introduction is going to join us coming up next. It is Iceland Annie.
Annie Thorisdottir is going to take event number 2 and put 100 points in her pocket.
And we are very happy and lucky to welcome Annie Thorisdottir to us here at the Rogue Iron Game desk. Annie, thanks so much for taking some time with us. We appreciate it.
Hi, my pleasure. It's a way to be a part of the games this year.
We always love seeing you compete, but we're lucky to have you here as an analyst and also giving us an update on you and what's going on. It's been a very busy year.
Yeah, considering everything, it's actually been a very busy year for me. I am now a mother, so that's definitely the biggest change I've ever gone through.
Most definitely, and congratulations to you and your family. It's a wonderful thing to be a parent, but we know in terms of your long-term plans and competing and participating in CrossFit, it's not necessarily going to slow you down. But looking at this competition, what's your thoughts through 2 events of what you've seen?
Well, first off, I think it's amazing to see the athletes back at the ranch. Having competed there myself, 2009, I loved it when we went back there, 2016. So it's very cool to see them there. And at the same time, I feel like this itchy butterflies in my stomach, itchy need to want to be there myself as well. It's like I'm jealous of them getting to be in aromas and competing there. But the first 2 events, the same thing. I look at them, I'm like, oh my God, I want to be on that floor and I want to do this with them. Especially with that hill sprint. That's one of my favorite memories from CrossFit. The first ever event that I won at the CrossFit Games was the hill sprint in 2009. But it's cool to see them there. I think it's incredible just to watch 5 women and 5 men battle it out. It would obviously be nice to have more athletes to look at, but it gives you a little bit of a different experience, and it puts a little bit of a different pressure on the athletes. And the mindset is a little bit different because now you've already earned top 5. So you're going to go through the same suffering as you've done every single year at the CrossFit Games. It's going to hurt, and it's going to be so mentally and physically difficult. But not every year you're guaranteed a good outcome, and now you're already guaranteed you're going to be top 5 in the world. And now it's just trying to climb your way up as far as you can go, and you're going to be able to see your competition. There's nothing that's going to surprise you while you're competing, either from previous heats or anything like that. I think it's cool to watch these athletes go because I feel like I know all of them so well. So I'm kind of, oh, I think this person's going to do this and that person's going to do that. And I would say the biggest surprise is Brooke Wells, but knowing Brooke, I know she's never going to quit. She's never going to give up mentally. So we're only 2 events in. And with a field of just 5 athletes, you can always make a mistake, and that mistake might cost you ending 5th place in that event. So with just 2 events done, anything can happen. We can speculate for the fun of it, but we're not going to get anything out of it. Except for obviously Tia and Fraser. They're not surprising anyone where they're at. I just hope the girls are going to give Tia a good competition. Tia is one of my favorites, but it's not fun to compete if you don't get a good competition for it. And so I hope the girls are going to give her a good fight, and I think they will.
Very true. Annie Thorisdottir here with us on the Rogue Iron Game desk. We've also got, of course, Pat Sherwood and Annie Sakamoto. I don't want to hug Annie all to myself, so guys, what are your questions?
Well, first of all, I just want to say congratulations, Annie, on becoming a mother. It's really fun to see that, you can have a balance between being a competitor and having a family. So congratulations. And more than a question, I want to say that to me, Annie T is such a wonderful example of a competitor in CrossFit, and the longevity of being able to not only physically compete, but mentally. I just love seeing the joy that you take in competing. And it's obvious how much you love it.
Without
Thank you.
Doubt.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Annie, I'm curious. I'm married to a woman who's a 2-time competitor as well, and now a mother. And I've seen that shift of how you have to work out and the mindset, and you kind of see your old numbers go out the window. How has your journey been from the volume that you were used to doing of working out and the loading and the intensity to having to ramp that down and make some different decisions? Did it come easy to you, or if was it a bit of a struggle?
I think it was hard for me not to get to go super hard anymore. I trained throughout my whole pregnancy, which was amazing. And I can't really complain because it was, a perfect pregnancy, I would say, throughout. And I was able to train throughout the whole, until my due day. I was able to train. So it's hard for me not to get to go as hard as I wanted to go, but at the same time, I was growing a person inside of me, and I actually feel like I got to experience it in a special way as well, because knowing myself so well, I felt every single thing so strongly, and I had to learn a new way to listen to my body. It wasn't not listen to it and go hard, because as an athlete, it's always your mind is going to break out before your body does. But all of a sudden it's like, no. Don't
Right.
listen to your body. Be smarter than this. But the journey afterwards has actually been harder than I expected. So I somehow, in my mind, I had imagined that I would give birth, and then it would be like, all right, Frederick, here she is.
I'm back
I
at
made
it.
her, now you can assist. And I'm going to go train, and then I'll come and feed and take care of things, but you take care of her in between. But I couldn't start training as quickly as I wanted to. I actually had a really difficult birth, and I lost a lot of blood and had to recover properly, and I'm still recovering. I'm just 2 months into the recovery.
Oh, okay.
But I somehow felt like I was going to be able to just go back to what I used to be doing in about 4 to 6 weeks. Just do everything, hit a hard CrossFit workout, and just be ready. And I was like, oh, well, the games are getting postponed. Maybe I can just compete at the games. Yeah, I was getting there. I'm definitely not ready for that yet, but the feeling I got when I got to go hard again, when I got to go on the bike and I got to push as hard as I wanted to and get lactic, get anaerobic. Like, I know this sounds crazy, but wow, I have missed that feeling. Like the endorphin rush that you got afterwards, and not having gone that hard for 9 months it felt amazing. And I think I appreciate training in a different way right now.
I'm glad to hear it. That's fantastic.
And I'll tell you, Annie, I actually think that about a year after having each of my kids, I was in the best shape of my life. So that's saying a lot for you, so give it a few more months, and you never know, you may even feel stronger than you did pre-baby.
Hope for that.
We're definitely betting on Annie to be back in 2021, and we're betting on the baby about 2040 to be competing at the top of the field as well. Let's keep you around as we move on to Event 3 and look at what is ahead for the athletes here. It's an event I know you're familiar with, and we have seen contested a couple of times before. It is CrossFit Total. So we're going to have 3 max lifts, a 1-rep max back squat, a 1-rep max shoulder press, a 1-rep max deadlift. Athletes have 3 attempts at each of these disciplines. Pat, let's start with you. What are the keys to this event that we've seen before, but we'll likely see pushed to new heights here in 2020?
Well, in contrast to what we just had in event number 2 at the corn sack sprint, when it was just go for broke, you have to be very smart, very strategic with this. If you get 3 attempts at each lift, that first attempt, regardless of whether it's the squat, dead, or press, you want that to be a challenging lift, a lift that you're proud of and is hard, but you know for a fact you've got it. You're going to be successful. Get it on the board. And then the jumps that you make, especially with it, number 2, push that limit to maybe ride the line to right where you think the border of your capacity is. Go for it. And then if you're successful with it, you have one final attempt to maybe break ahead of the competition. But if you choose poorly, and you just struggle, and you get a failed rep of you only have 3 attempts, that's very costly, not only to your entire system, but your mental state as well. You don't want to get a failure. You just want to ride that line.
Annie Thorisdottir, I'll ask you this. How does the strategy change when it goes from what we're used to seeing at the CrossFit Games with 40 athletes competing across a number of heats or a longer period of time, to now reducing it down to 5, and you can really see and examine and strategize what you're going to do in comparison with the other 4 athletes out there?
Well, like Pat said, you need to be really smart with the ways that you choose to go with. I remember when we did that event, 2018? Yeah, I was really nervous about what weight to start off with, because then you want to get a chance. I tend to do better with audience or in competition setting with eyes on. So I want to maybe have a chance at a PR even at the event. So you want to ride the line on the second one, but you want to be able to get like a good chance on that third bar. However, there, I could not follow any of the athletes. So you also want to make sure you have that 1 kilo or 2 pounds or 1 pound. I don't know how they're going to have the jumps now, but you definitely don't want to lose with 1 or 2 pound difference. So you want to push that line as much as you can. And now having this 5 athletes, you're going to be able to look around a little bit, and they're going to be able to play a little bit with each other. So I think that's going to make this event even more exciting, is who's going to get to go first, get to go last. Are you going to take a bigger chance? It might be a bad decision, or you're going to be lucky being going after that person. Like, you're going to be looking. If it was me, I would definitely be looking around. What is she doing? I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to do exactly the same. I'm maybe going to go a little bit heavier, because it's going to make that key difference at the end.
Well, let's look at who loves and who hates this event. And Pat, let's start with you. Who loves it? Who hates it?
This event could not come at a better time for Brooke Wells. After 2 fifth-place finishes, she is in a significant hole, but this is a wheelhouse event for her. It's beautifully timed. She's incredibly strong, and she has the capacity to put up some serious numbers. She's got a 425-pound listed deadlift, a 345-pound back squat, and last time we saw her press at the total, which took place at the 2018 games, she put up 140 pounds, so she might be even a bit stronger. So she took second in 2018 to Tia, but if she can ride that line today, Brooke needs to put some money in the bank.
Definitely. And on the other side of that, Pat, I'm obviously looking at Haley Adams. This is probably by far her most unfavorable event. Again, we are testing absolute strength, and unfortunately for Haley, that's where I think she falls short compared to most of these other females. Having said that, if we look at stage 1 of the competition, she actually tied Katrin Davidsdottir on the 1-rep max front squat. So again, she's not the strongest of all of these ladies, but if she can hang in there and take a 4th versus a 5th, she'll keep herself in a really good position as far as vying for that podium goes.
And let's look at the men's competition as well. Kind of a similar story. Matt Frazier has pulled ahead 2 first-place finishes. Who loves, who hates CrossFit Total?
Well, I'm going to say who loves it is Jeffrey Adler. He has the heaviest listed deadlift. These are just the numbers that we got in at 545 pounds. He has a listed back squat of 465 pounds, which could even be heavier considering he front squatted 418 pounds in stage 1 of the competition. He also won 20.4 in the open this year, which involved 5 clean and jerks at the end at 315 pounds. So if there's one thing that Jeff Adler is really good at, it is definitely the strength pieces. And I loved what he did on that second event where he made that little move on Medeiros. It kind of showed that his head is in the game. He is playing for keeps, and I like that coming into this next competition where, like Pat said, you need to not only play your own game, but play smart as well.
Man, I'll tell you what, Noah Olson needs a fantastic event, but I'm sorry, I don't think it's going to go that way for him. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're talking about the top 5 fittest men and women on the planet, so they're all incredible. However, for this event, the other 4 gentlemen that Noah Olson will be lifting against just happen to be profoundly strong, and on average just a little bit stronger than him on paper. Now, he might rise to the occasion, but currently sitting in 4th place for somebody that took the silver medal last year, Noah needs to start climbing out of that hole, and I just don't think the CrossFit Total is going to help him do that right now.
Annie, let me put this question to you. If you're not one of the leaders right now, what's going through your mind as you see how the first 2 events have played out? You know a little bit about what's ahead of you, at least with event 3. What is your strategy moving into this one if you're trying to make a comeback, either to get onto the podium or challenge one of the leaders?
Well, in this event, you can't risk it too much. You have to make sure, because you could make a really big mistake in this event too. So I feel like this is the kind of event where you need to play with your own, like you need to know yourself just really well. And then you can take that chance and use the fire on that last lift. And that's where you can try to make sure that you're gonna catch that leader. That's where you need to think about what is this person maybe gonna do and take a chance to do more than that. So yeah, you're forcing them to push the envelope as well.
Annie, thank you so much for joining us. Really, congratulations on the baby. You look great. We hope everyone continues to be happy and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you back in competition soon.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, you guys.
Annie Thorisdottir, Iceland Annie, a two-time CrossFit Games champ. We're very thankful to have had her here with us for Rogue Iron Game. Much, much more to come here still throughout today and throughout the weekend. We'll have your full coverage of the 2020 Reebok CrossFit Games. And again, a very busy day. CrossFit Total is next on the schedule for the athletes. And we'll, of course, be following it up with our Iron Game show here from CrossFit Brethren in Morgan Hill. And 2 more events throughout the day. We'll have special guests throughout the weekend. It's going to be a very busy, very fun weekend with the fittest on earth. I'll try and challenge Matt Frazier and Tia Claire Toomey, who maybe are just going to be competing against themselves from this point on, trying to extend their own accolades as they have dominated so far. Both of them 2 for 2 with event wins so far at the 2020 Reebok CrossFit Games. That's going to do it for us for the moment. Again, a reminder, we'll be back after CrossFit Total to break it down and get you ready for Event 4, which is, for the moment, still an unknown. For Pat Sherwood and Annie Sakamoto, I'm Sam Farber. Thanks for watching the Rogue Iron Game Desk here at the 2020 Reebok CrossFit Games.